Yeah, we're going to jump back in here real quick because we just had a short pour of the Jameson Orange that we're getting ready to mix up into a cocktail. And what's the name of the cocktail we're going to do? Bow Saint Smash Cocktail. It's going to have some Jameson Orange, lemon wedges, mint leaves, a little bit of vanilla / simple syrup, and we're going to muddle some stuff, and that's going to make a really good cocktail here in a minute. But
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, right now we're just going to try it by itself just to get an honest, kind of hopefully honest representation of what this thing has to say for itself.
There is a lot of orange on the nose.
Way strong.
I'll go with that.
I'll give it a taste.
This is not something I'm going to sit down and drink.
Yeah, this is
by itself.
This is like drinking candy. Like you know how I was talking about the little toilet paper roll,
right?
Push pop thing, not push pop, but the Dreamsicle orange sherbet from the ice cream truck guy. That's what this tastes like, but in whiskey form. And you were talking, Mitch. You were talking earlier about making an old fashioned with it.
I think so, maybe, but there's not enough bourbon flavor, to be honest with you. I mean, because it would be a really good add mixture to a bitter. I would almost double down with a good quality bourbon behind it.
Like I said before, I've been eyeballing for a long time, and so as I finally saw it at the local liquor store and I went to pick it up, it came in a box with 2 small Sprite cans.
Nice.
And on the back side of it, they had a recipe for basically just this, Sprite and ice. And then they had another one on there that was a little bit elevated. But as I started researching it, I found on Jameson's website, they had a handful of other recipes. And the one we're going to try was actually one of them that I found. I'm tweaking it slightly. I like bitters. And I like specifically the orange bitters. I think a dash of that might just kind of give it a little bit of extra pop. It also talked about vanilla syrup or simple syrup. And I've got simple syrup, so I'm going to do a splash of vanilla with the simple syrup.
Yeah, and I noticed it's
a little bit of
vanilla extract, and you got to be super careful with that stuff.
Absolutely. So, yeah, but there's a lot of lemon that goes in there. I think for every pour that I do of that, there will be 4 lemon wedges that will go into that. So it'll be interesting.
I was born with a mouthful of sweet tooths, so I could probably handle this. I would call this a breakfast whiskey. Like the Jameson coffee that we talked about, the coffee flavored Jameson.
That is a breakfast whiskey.
I forgot about that until just now. That's chef's kiss. Mwah! It's delicious. And this, with being such a low proof, it's 60 proof, 30% alcohol. You could really get away with drinking that for as part of your well balanced breakfast.
Orange juice.
This reminds me of. And I can't remember, I had a bottle of this in the freezer forever. I could never figure out how to drink it. It's like a licorice flavored.
Are you talking about the Zambuca?
Zambuca. Could never figure out how to use Zambuca, right? And so it's sitting in my freezer forever.
This is story time.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And so
we
used to get together in my old house, and I had a little pool table and dartboard. We all get together and hang out, boys, on the weekends, whatever. Ladies do things upstairs, boys do things downstairs. We'd have cocktails. So we drank a lot of Crown back in the day because that was kind of the go-to drink. We drank a lot of Jack Daniels and Gentleman Jack, and there were several bourbons involved. I mean,
Dr. Pepper and Crown.
Yeah, that was the go-to.
One of the ones that came.
But I had this bottle of Zambuca sitting in the freezer forever. I just didn't know what to do with it because it was just so sweet and so licorice, and I purchased it for an additive to another drink. The recipe didn't work out, but thought, what the fuck am I going to do with this? I don't know. So just sit there forever. So one particular night, and there's always beer involved, and so one particular night we were playing pool, throwing darts, I don't know, maybe cards, I don't remember.
Oh, you know what?
But we had a long night.
That was one of my birthdays because one of the photos from that night, I've got the Princess Tiara on my head and my big stein of beer.
But Sambuca came into play.
We're going to need that picture for social.
Well, it's because we ran out of everything
else. And so it came down to the part of the evening where
every beer
not
was
everyone
gone.
Is done drinking,
every
but
bottle
we're out
was
of
empty.
booze. And so we went through everything in the house, and there's a Sambuca sitting there, and it's in the freezer, and my buddy goes and grabs it, and he's like, fuck it. And he pours it, opens a Mountain Dew that was in the fridge, and he pours it in with Mountain Dew and tastes it. this ain't fucking bad. And so he made us all Mountain Dew and Sambuca Dew. We ripped that entire fucking bottle until it was gone. And it was just one of those things that, like, I would not drink this alone.
Right.
But there may be a recipe.
There might
Sprite,
be.
or there might be something that's so fucking fantastic that you're like, oh my God, this is great. And maybe the Sprite is it, or maybe the whatever recipe you're looking at. But sometimes there's just that booze or that liquor that you're just like, oh my God, it's too fucking much. And I used to bartend back in the day, and you had a very limited recipe book. You had to go to basically like a little binder, and you had just a handful of drinks. Mm-hmm. And if somebody came to you and they said, hey, I want whatever the drink of choice was, and you didn't know what the hell it was, you're like, okay, what's in it? And it's a shot in the dark. Now, when you go out, and this is funny because we actually had this experience not long ago. Yeah. And dude, so Mint Julep is one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we go to this Mexican restaurant, and we're having drinks, and they have a wonderful array of tequilas and all these other great alcohols available, but nothing that my girl specifically wanted to drink. So we talked about doing a Mint Julep. So what do? They go or a mojito, not a mint julep, mojito. She wanted a mojito. It's a Mexican restaurant, and there's all these young folks behind the bar. They had no idea how to make a fucking mojito. And I'm thinking, you would think that'd be a staple drink. So what do? They go to their freaking phone. They start looking it up, and luckily they actually had because the normal bartender that's there, he knows how to like take care of us, right? And so he actually has a live plant for mint to make the mojito there, and so they're literally plucking leaves off and making it and mulling it, and about like what we're going to do here in a moment with this drink. But, these kids are on their phone, and they're taking their best shot. Don't blame them. That's bartending now, but back then it was just, dude, there was a lot of mixology that happened, and it was just straight out of your ass.
Those kids on their phone, you give them 5-10 years, like, they're going to know it right off the top of their head.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, repetition.
Right.
They'll figure it out.
But back in the day, we were mixing shit literally, you're just like, well, try this, do this. And it was true mixology.
Well, that doesn't work. Here, try this one.
Right. Every mistake was a step towards perfection.
Mixology 101, though. Figure out how to make a good drink out of a crap alcohol. And thank God our palates have developed because, back in the day, it was all about cheap beer. You ever tell about college beer? Which I know we're not here to talk about beer.
No,
Jonathan, what is the cheapest, worst beer you've ever drank?
The one that I've ever probably have to be either Natty Light or Coors Light. Natty Light is definitely the cheapest, I think.
Really? Okay.
And I would say, I came up here from St. Louis to go to the Kansas City Art Institute. Despite all the artists on campus, everyone on campus drinks, the Kansas City Art Institute is a dry campus.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
For artists?
Right. But the one exception, alcohol is forbidden on campus, except if you're having a gallery opening, it is acceptable to serve something.
A lot of openings.
Right?
Right. Every Friday.
So the painting department, the photography department would buy cases and cases of Schlitz.
Nice.
Okay.
And so when I think of cheap, skunky beer, Schlitz is what comes to mind because that's what was all around campus.
Schlitz malt liquor.
And it was, and so what the funny thing is, anytime anyone had a gallery opening, everyone just kind of flocked to it because you could drink at the gallery opening.
Oh yeah,
Schlitz beer.
I've heard in not commissaries, but the local stores inside of military bases, they'll have
commissaries.
All it says is just beer.
Right.
It'd be like a white can, black letters, beer is what it says. Or like same thing with bread or whatever.
I got one for you. So
When I
was in
never tried
college,
those.
we had a Save-A-Lot, and the Save-A-Lot. I went to college in a small town, St. Joe, Missouri. Poor ass town, and no work up there, and so they had a Save-A-Lot, and so we'd all go there to shop for groceries, and there was generic beer, which was a white label in black letters. It just said beer.
Okay.
And then that was like whatever price that was. I don't remember for an actual case because cases came in flats then. Then below it was Wiedemann's, and it actually had a brand name, but it was cheaper.
It was cheaper than the
freaking generic beer. And that's what we bought. And if you ever had a PBR poured through a gym sock with dirt and piss in it, that's what Wiedemann's tasted like.
So you
And I
drank
drank a lot of it.
No.
It was so fucking bad. But the same is true for bourbons. I give my appreciation for good bourbons and good Irish whiskeys. You had to start somewhere. So I started at the bottom, the absolute fucking bottom, and learn how to drink cheap and find out where your palate can tolerate and where that price point's at. And then yada yada. And then all of a sudden you start discovering all these magical, wonderful flavors that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah. You talked about at one point Jim Beam was one of those for you.
Yeah, it kind of still is. It's a standby. It's like old hat. You know, it's like an old friend you like to visit with. You pour it in there, give me 2 fingers, maybe melt half an ice cube in it, throw the ice cube away, and then just watch Star Trek for 3 hours.
I'm not gonna lie. In my opinion, I think Jim Beam is maybe my old standard as well. But Jim Beam is actually a good bourbon maker. The process now, what you're typically drinking is a white label and a young Jim Beam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As opposed to, because those are the same folks that make they make some really good upper shelf whiskeys as well. Not Bland's. What the fuck is it? Oh my god, they make some really good easy drinking bourbons as well. But the same thing, just depending where the processor's at. They that's quality bourbon. Honestly, it's hot. It's young. Typically, if you get an upper shelf, something that's been processed a little better, I mean, it's not a bad manufacturer. So, I don't know. I drank a lot of Jim Beam, dude. I'm not going to lie. But that's one that's a little hot. It's a little early.
It is a little hot.
It's just,
it's
like
still,
you said,
it's still really
normally
sweet.
I drink neat, but I'm gonna dip that one in ice.
Yeah, it's got citrus on the front end, and I think in the back, and after the afterburn is kicked out of you, you got apple.
Basil Hayden.
Basil Hayden.
They make
I was just talking about Basil Hayden with Wayne.
That's made by Jim Beam.
Okay. I'm a fan of their dark rye.
I agree.
It's
absolutely.
Really good.
So they make good quality bourbons and whiskeys.
It's been compared to jet fuel,
yeah.
but I still enjoy it. I'll still melt half an ice cube in there and then sip on it for a while.
Have you ever drank Maker's Mark?
Maker's
Four
Mark,
Roses?
4 Roses, we've talked about that one.
These are things that people
one's not bad either.
hold in high accolades.
I don't hold
to
4
me,
Roses.
they're hot. They're hot.
Yeah.
I still want an ice cube.
Yeah.
The only 4 Roses that I've tried that I really kind of enjoyed was their small batch. Their small batch select. But the regular 4 Roses, I didn't really care for too much.
I will put either one of those, though. If you're talking about an old fashioned, I'll use any of those 3 for an old fashioned. We're gonna, use Jim Beam. Yep, a Maker's Mark, and 4 Roses. Those are great for mixing.
Sure.
Especially Maker's Mark. My buddy Fritz loves Maker's Mark all day, every day. He'll fucking drink it up. But anytime he'll get an old fashioned, it's got Maker's Mark in it.
Right.
And we haven't made a lot of old fashions yet, but I don't know if we'll visit Maker's Mark because there's just so much out there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little taste and compare, side by side comparison. Maybe.
Well, I think
someday. I don't know.
I think West Bottom Whiskey Company ruined us. When it comes to the old fashions.
It ruined old fashions for everybody else.
Yeah.
That
might be a field trip you'll need to
you haven't
go
been
on.
I haven't.
You've got to go.
I definitely love to support KC Local.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I learned that I think is one of the coolest things that we learned about that, today we've sampled a variety of Irish whiskeys, and what defines an Irish whiskey. With West Bottom Brewing Company and Rieger, both of those,
Rieger,
there is a thing that is the Kansas City style whiskey, and I had no idea that there even was a Kansas City style whiskey, let alone what it is. But West Bottoms, they've kind of piggybacked off of what Rieger's established back in the 20s, and recently has revisited it and had a resurge of it. But it's a blended whiskey that is blended with a 2% of sherry.
Nice.
And then aged in the sherry cask. I don't know. I found that really interesting, and it's on the tasting notes of both of the first ones that we did earlier. There was a sherry cask
involved with a lot of Irish whiskeys. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's got a little corn and rye in it also.
Yeah.
So that brings it back to American whiskey. This always interests me, the difference between American whiskeys as opposed to Irish whiskeys, because the process is different. And whether you call it a bourbon or just a whiskey. I mean, all those processes are involved, and they denote how you label that bottle. So when you look at what, we spoke about this in an earlier conversation about what denotes American whiskey over Irish whiskey, and you just mentioned corn. But, rye whiskey, pre-Prohibition whiskey, a lot of ryes it wasn't corn, it was rye.
Yeah.
And so there was this whole other standard of whiskey that hadn't really been established. And, that had been established earlier that kind of, it's just one of those things that it depends on the ingredients that are available. So there's this whole genre of American whiskeys, and now we're getting off in it.
Can you hear the dog snoring? Dear listener, can you hear the dog snoring?
So, because our conversation's so interesting.
He is so excited.
He got in the bourbon early.
He's hanging on every word.
Absolutely. And when it comes to bourbons, let me just tell you, it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Willie is a sprinter.
He's still a good boy.
Yeah, but we spent some time down at the West Bottom Brewing Company. We learned about the Kansas City whiskey. And on their menu, they have what is labeled as the world's best old-fashioned. And I read that, I was like, that is a bold statement.
That's a very bold statement.
And so when our waitress came by, I called her out, and I'm like, what is this world's best old-fashioned?
Says who? She's
like, and so we're like,
buckle up, Buttercup.
Like, bring her around. Let's take this for a test drive. It did not disappoint. It was by the time we left there, I got enough information out of her as to what made it the world's best old-fashioned, and I immediately went to the interwebs, and Amazon helped me. The big thing, they use chocolate bitters versus the aromatic bitters.
Oh, wow.
They use maple syrup instead of simple syrup.
Very good.
And can't forget those barrel-aged cherries.
Barrel-aged cherries.
And so,
I think I know about those.
And the orange.
No, you're thinking of the wild turkey cherries.
Oh yes, I am. Sir.
Oh no,
that's a little.
That's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother
day. But good God, those are. I'm trying to get the.
Give me my drink back. We just mixed up the Bow Street Smash cocktail. We used the Jameson Orange, and we sliced up some lemon.
Drink in there?
Yes, sir.
We sliced up some lemon slices, put in a couple dashes of orange bitters.
Yeah, you had like 12 wedges?
12 wedges. I did 3. The recipe did not call for it, but I just felt like the orange bitters would just give it a little bit of a pop. So I put 3 dashes in there. Little pinch of vanilla, because the recipe called for vanilla syrup or simple syrup. Well, why not both? So we use simple syrup with a dash of pure vanilla syrup.
And there's a full complexity on the vanilla that we got from this fancy vanilla that you brought out. What was it called?
I don't even know, honestly.
He said that it's got alcohol in it.
It is a really... my girl cooks, and like, it's a top shelf vanilla. That's all I can tell you.
And it
something I'm never buying.
It even sounds like it tastes good.
Right.
You hear that?
It's like La Vencia or some shit like that. But
get your Pavlovian responses kicking in yet? It's like watching Trailer Park Boys.
This is really, really good. The interesting thing is...
Mouth is watering just hearing the ice rattle.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jameson Orange by itself, as much as I love and was excited and anticipating that orange flavor, is really, really overbearing, I thought, by itself. This, though, and maybe it's the amount of lemon wedges that we put in there, but it really, really knocked that orange way back and then made it a little bit more lemon forward. I think if we were to make another one, I might cut down. So four wedges per drink, I might cut that in half. Maybe there's only 2 wedges instead of the 4 per drink.
I like the lemon. I think the lemon's awesome. And the fact that you're, because I think it blends well with the orange.
It blended fantastic, yeah.
And then that mint on top of it, and then the vanilla, just all those flavors. That is a beautiful combination of flavors. I think the vanilla is just that little bit of, because you're always, if you do any cooking at all, and you deal with sweets and sours, it's always a balance, right?
Absolutely.
And so we've got all these sours that are kicking. You got all the orange and the lemon, and then you mix it off with a little bit of mint, and you get some vanilla in there, and those simple sugars. And that's chemistry. It's just a balance of, hey, how many sweets do you want? How many sours do you want?
And mint is one of those things that very easily can take over and overpower everything.
Right.
It's that way in cooking, and it's that way in the garden.
Absolutely.
The mint is very subtle in this.
Yeah,
I mean, it's there.
It's still there.
It's very noticeable.
Absolutely.
But it's subtle.
And you put plenty in there.
Oh, yeah.
You just kept pulling leaves and pulling leaves. I'm like, all right, bring it on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, this is good.
Oh,
and it wasn't bad
at
all.
Fantastic. I think this would be an absolutely awesome summer drink. There are a few summer drinks that for me are pretty high, and a mint julep's one of them, right? That's a Derby Day drink. I would put this in that category for something as a go-to hot weather drink. This is fantastic.
Yeah. And we talked about earlier. We talked about earlier drinks, the mojito and the mint julep. Now help me out here, because I always forget. But your mojito is it tequila or is it vodka?
I think mojitos are typically tequila.
Yeah. Whereas your mint julep is
vodka.
That's bourbon.
That's bourbon.
That's bourbon.
Bourbon?
That's bourbon.
Katie got me a Woodford Reserve taster pack that came with bottles for the old-fashioned syrup, the whiskey sour syrup, and a mint julep.
Was that for your anniversary? Because the 5-year
It was.
is the wood.
You are absolutely correct.
We can edit this out so Katie doesn't.
That's all right. I got it right the first time.
Hey, Katie. Banana bread.
I'm dying for her to listen to that.
Right.
But
Nice.
all their syrups are fantastic.
Nice.
And I really enjoy making from scratch the cocktails, but their syrups are just, it's stupid easy. You put it in the glass, put a little bourbon in there, you're good to go.
I love doing an old fashioned or what have you in that fashion where you have a good mix. And that's great, and it's easy and simple. We all like to, when you got time and you got good ingredients, to do it the long way, right? Just to go and make it as good as you can make it. But, dude, when you got something that's infallible like that's just an easy pour, and it's fucking good
and
to
it's
go.
Perfect every time.
Every fucking time.
That's the thing
Exactly.
that I
It's hard
was.
to beat.
Indeed.
I'll drink to that.
I'm still beating it.
Cheers.
Cheers, brothers. Yeet.
I just noticed the glass that you're drinking out of is a larceny glass.
Yes, it is.
That is another really good bourbon.
It is. You are
And
correct, sir.
it's a cheap bourbon, too.
It is. You are correct again, sir. I'm all about the cheap bourbons. I like to keep my palate in that $20 to $30 range, but then I like to jump up and have a good bourbon. And we had this discussion, I think, a time or two tonight, that you can drink well outside of your budget and be appreciative, but once you hit a certain budget, it's just not worth the money.
Nope.
That's just a good, solid contender for a daily drink. No different than my daily drink of beer is a pretty standard beer, but I like me some good beers, and when those are available at a reasonable rate, I'm all about it. We talk about small batch whiskeys, I mean, there's some major production whiskeys that are very palatable for a reasonable rate. And I'm always looking for that gem in the rough, that little nugget of
Absolutely.
that little sweet spot of what's my daily drink, and then what's my go-to happy celebration drink.
Yeah. And even though this is a little bit more work to put a cocktail like this together, we talked about that Jameson Orange by itself is not a daily drinker.
And it doesn't taste like oranges to me. Have you guys ever had loquats? They're grape-sized, and they're citrus, and they're like really strong. But the flavor of them tastes a lot like this Jameson Orange. It doesn't really taste like orange to me. It tastes like loquats. I found them at Whole Foods one time and made a jam out of it because I'm a regular Betty Crocker.
You're just a jammer.
Right. That's my jam.
Just make your jam.
As an ingredient, it shines. By itself, it shines a little too damn bright. Where would you put at it? I mean, it's 1 out of 10. The ingredient or the whiskey itself and the cocktail.
So as a mix ingredient, I think I agree. I think I would put it really high. I would probably put it about a 9. Just as far as a mix. As far as like I'm drinking it by itself, it's like a 6. You're not going to have that. It's no different than a lot of your liqueurs, because you mentioned that it was not a...
It's not super sweet like a liqueur, but the flavor is so intense like a liqueur.
But the alcohol content is in between as well. It was 70 proof.
This was 60, I believe.
60 proof. So it's a lower proof. So you mentioned breakfast.
Breakfast whiskey, yeah.
So, a little bit of orange juice, maybe, get you going more with your eggs. I don't know.
Right.
I'll report back on that.
Throw it in the Fruity Pebbles. I bet you mix that in with your Fruity Pebbles. It'll be a fine day.
It's good stuff.
Great
so back to mixology. This was a absolutely wonderful drink.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
This one's called the Jameson Bow Street Smash Cocktail. And it was really good. I'd definitely give it a solid 9 out of 10. I don't know why I wouldn't go 10 out of 10. But maybe because it was so lemon forward to me. It wasn't so... the orange seems to me like it got lost with between the mint and the lemon. But it was still very good.
Yeah, the funny thing is, while I was making it, I was hesitant to put too much of the orange bitters in there because I just figured there's so much orange in that Jameson.
Yeah, I remember you gave it two dashes, and then you're like, fuck it, I'll throw in a third.
Right.
And still, I don't think it was lost because I think it's in there. It's just not as forward as say the lemon was.
I thought it was absolutely a delightful drink. I don't know. I would still give it a 9 out of 10 just because, it's hard to make a 10.
Right. What's going to be a 10?
Right.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Savor the Burn. We definitely had a good time recording this episode. We had the initial tasting of the spirit by itself, the Jameson Orange, and then we had it in a cocktail, the Jameson Orange Bow Street Smash Cocktail, to be more specific. And be sure to follow us on all streaming services.
And we're now on YouTube as well.
We are.
Nice.
We are. We're uploading content daily across all platforms. We're just about everywhere. And if you want to contact us at info@savortheburn.com. You can email us there. You can email us individually, Jonathan@savortheburn.com, and you can email Wayne at w2@savortheburn.com.
Thanks, Mitch, for agreeing to host us and being a part of the episode. So
absolutely.
Yes, thank you for inviting us into your home and showing us your incredible bar setup here and letting us ransack the kitchen and cut things up and put ingredients all over your kitchen.
All good. You
and it's good to meet you, doggos.
Anytime. And I'm doing this whole comedy thing down the road, so I'm also on all social media. From way back in the day, from MySpace to Twitter to Facebook. So look for me on my Twit face. It's all good.
And it sounds to me like that's all we got for this episode of the Savor the Burn podcast. Thank you for listening. You can check us out at savortheburn.com. We have a website. It's constantly being developed. And once again, thank you, Mitch, for inviting us into your home and letting us set up our little our mobile recording unit and record here in your house. Thank you so much.
Outstanding. Appreciate you.
Thank
Good
you.
time.
All right, that's it.
That's it. We'll talk to you later. Keep on savoring that burn.